Hi, I'm Charlie Pickering. Welcome to Tomorrow Tonight, where we create a news event to excite, enthrall and sometimes entrap a panel of prominent Australians. Let's see what's in the news tomorrow tonight. Please welcome our guest tonight, inventor and biomedical engineer Dr. Jordan Nguyen, car enthusiast and TV presenter Kate Peck, and comedian Merrick Watts. And joining me every week, it's Annabelle Crabb. Learning to drive is an Australian rite of passage. Driving is our escape, our identity, and the only way you can get served in a drive-through. It's also one of the most dangerous things you can do. Driverless cars may soon remove both the thrill and the tragedy from driving. But how do you feel about your car making decisions about life and death?
Welcome to your new driverless vehicle. Simply tell me where you would like to go and I'll calculate the fastest route. Along the way, my sensors, GPS and safety algorithm will monitor the road from all directions and I will react at superhuman speeds, which means you can sit back, relax or even take a nap while I drive you to your destination faster and safer.
With just 3 days until Christmas, let's take a look at the first holiday road toll since driverless cars were introduced. And as you can see, it's the largest single-year reduction in Australian history.
And remember, you can also customise my voice.
So you can relax and enjoy a soothing glass of wine.
And it will deal with all the dickheads on the road for you. Too good.
While some people refuse to transition to fully driverless cars, a growing number of vehicles on Australian roads no longer have a human in control.
Yeah, this is shaping up to be our best Christmas ever.
Someone call an ambulance!
2 people are dead and a family is in mourning after their driverless car deliberately swerved to avoid 3 drunken revellers.
Data obtained from the vehicle shows the car made a split-second calculation to try to minimise loss of life. The safety algorithm chose to swerve the car, sacrificing the 2 passengers.
2 innocent people are dead thanks to this algorithm. It should have killed those drunks. A human would have known that.
A driverless car has made a split-second decision to let 2 people die in order to save 3 drunk pedestrians. Merrick, did the car make the right choice?
No, it didn't. It should always prioritise the occupants of the vehicle first.
The car's made a decision to just save 3 people instead of 2 people. Is that a reasonable thing to do, to, like, kill as few people as possible?
I think so. And I also think that these decisions in this car have been made a very long time ago, like when they were programmed by whichever extremely ethical or moral person is programming these cars.
So you think the decision to save more lives in the situation is the right thing for the car to do?
Yes. What would be cool is if we could all program our own cars. So maybe, Merrick, you might program your car to, say, save your wife if
Preference
you were...
your children. Yeah,
preference your children.
Yeah. Jordan, in this situation, the pedestrians broke the law. They just stepped out into the road. Should the car calculate fault when it's deciding who lives and who dies?
See, I think this is one of the biggest discussions of our time. Actually, it's something that I've seen coming up so often. And the problem is, I don't think we could even put out the people and their backgrounds, their past, who they are, what the circumstance was. We could put this out to society to make a decision, and I don't think we'd come up to a 100% consensus.
I also think that humans get really freaked out by being killed by a robot.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I'm going to extend that. I get freaked out by being killed by anything. And sharks, cars, anything.
It's more acceptable to be killed by a human than it is to be killed by a robot. Like, people are genuinely uncomfortable with
I think it's more that we're just more used to it.
The statistic that is calculated is a full introduction of driverless cars would reduce our road toll by 90%.
Wow.
You do a lot in TV with cars, and you like driving yourself.
I love driving.
But you like the idea of autonomous vehicles.
Well, I like the idea of both, right? I mean, I'd love to drive sometimes. I guess it's like with the horse and cart back then. So they would have had the horse and cart, and then they would have gone to cars. Then they moved the horse and cart from being like their daily ride to their weekend pleasure or racing. So, like with badass cars, with manual sick bitchin' cars, you'd take them and put them on the track, and you'd have a fang there, or you'd go for a nice jolly drive on the weekend.
And that's it, isn't it? Many of us love driving, but that didn't save the horse and cart.
Yeah.
You're enthusiastically signing on to driverless cars.
Yes.
You think they're great, you want them on the road. Merrick, you were once involved in quite a serious car accident. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, I've been one of those people. I've been in that circumstance where human error has caused a collision. I've been literally run over by a car. Now, you probably can't see it on screen, but I had half my ear ripped off and they had to sew it back on, and I had quite a serious head trauma, which probably results in a lot of the things that I say today. But the person who was driving the vehicle had a collision with another vehicle and released the steering wheel in panic. Hands in the air, literally, and I was watching it just thinking, I'm so glad that I'm not involved in that collision. And then I was in the collision because they panicked, hit the accelerator, veered off the road onto the footpath and hit me on the footpath as a pedestrian.
So, driverless cars, in this example...
I would have been fine.
You would have been absolutely fine?
Yes.
So are you comfortable to buy into them, regardless of the possible downside, if they're going to make you safer in that situation?
No.
Annabelle, how do you feel about a car deciding who lives and who dies?
Not good. I'm not very good with autocorrect, so I'm not very good with this.
So, Kate, you were pretty enthusiastic about the convenience of a driverless car. Are you happy for them to make the decisions of who lives and who dies?
Yes.
Well, police have revealed the identities of the victims. They were 75-year-old Meryl Augustine and her 9-year-old granddaughter, Kerry, from Henley Beach in Adelaide. Annabelle, now that you know who was in the car, did it make the right decision?
Oh, I know what you're doing to me here. Like, this is horrible, actually. And like, now that I know who those people are, I'm even more freaked out about the cars making the decisions. But I also think, so there's, 1,200 motor vehicle deaths in Australia every year. If you cut that by 90%, I mean, yes, it's terrible for anyone to be killed in a road accident. But if driverless cars can eliminate that many hundred deaths, then, I don't know, the numbers kind of talk for themselves, don't they? That's 1,000 more families that don't have to go to funerals every year. That's pretty amazing. I have a question for you, which is, how fast could a car assess people on the street and work out which is more suitable for death than the other? I mean, what sort of information could a car like that access, and how fast?
Yeah, very, very, very quickly. Not only that, it could also assess who they are, depending on what sort of regulations we end up with, what sort of AI we end up with. But I have seen it before where cameras can choose up to 10 people in a crowd per second and get a sharp shot photo of that person's face and then relate that to who that person actually is. What we've got here is something that is deeply disturbing, which is that idea that we're having to go through understanding who the people might be and make those decisions ahead of time so it could be programmed into a vehicle. But the thing is, with the autonomous vehicles, they could actually determine who those people are, ages, all those sort of things, better than humans could.
Are you telling me that a car could take a picture of someone as they're about to hit them and work out who they are and how many driver demerit points they've got and whether they've cheated on their tax and whether they're kind to their dog and then decide whether to kill them or not in that second of time?
Yeah,
No, you are kidding me.
Yes, and the problem is it's because time almost slows down to being stopped when you're looking at how fast it can iterate through, a computer can iterate through code.
Could it go to my health record and say, well, that person has terminal illness anyway, so I'm just going to keep... There's not much time left. I mean, I don't know.
All of a sudden, Annabelle is exactly who should be designing these cars.
They've done some research on what people's instincts are as to who should be saved and in situations like this. And do you know what people say? Old people should be expendable first, and also fat people. I'm serious. Like that, for real. For real.
That's the research, not Annabelle saying that.
Thank you. There is some pretty ugly stuff if you start collecting opinions on who should be the first to go.
So, Mez, we're going to take the value judgment out of it. How would you feel if one of these cars, because it treated all people equally, ran over the Dalai Lama to save Vladimir Putin?
Well, I don't know either of them, so...
Oh, you think secretly the Dalai Lama's a monster?
Oh, no, I'm just saying I don't know. I don't necessarily believe in reincarnation, but, you know, maybe...
Oh, that's good. Driverless cars are deciding who lives and dies on our roads. Our panel can't decide if that's a good thing, but one car maker is ready to turn crisis into opportunity.
If there's one thing you know, it's that your family comes first. Wouldn't it be great if your car knew it too? The Telos i390 is the only driverless car guaranteed to prioritise the lives of its occupants in the event of an accident. Which means if someone has to die, it won't be the people you love. And at $39,990, it's a small price to pay for peace of mind. The Telos i390. It won't swerve for strangers.
Annabelle?
No!
Annabelle, you're in the market for a new family sedan for you and your 3 kids. Are you going to buy the i390 and guarantee that you prioritise your family over everyone else?
I have an urgent appointment elsewhere. I find this really awful. I just find these really upsetting questions, actually. And I, of course, want to protect my children, and the idea as a parent that you wouldn't do something that could protect them in an awful situation is just the most harrowing thought. But also, I don't want to pay extra money to drive a car that's going to mow down people who don't have the money to buy that car. Like, that's just awful.
Hey, there's every chance no mowing down will occur.
No, but I mean, I don't want to get out of a car and just explain to the parent of the kid that my car just ran over that I'm sorry, but my kids had to come first. It's a really...
So what are you choosing, Annabelle?
Well, I guess I'll buy it, because otherwise I just will have nightmares, I guess. I don't know.
But even the choice of the car, right? So, by the way, $39,990, that's a good price. I know it's not really...
So you're already tempted.
But I was clocked by the price. You had me there. If you go home and you say, I bought the car that preferences other people other than our children, you're going to have a very awkward meal.
No one's going to buy the vehicle if there's a choice. If we have the choice of this vehicle here, where it can save your family and save the people inside the car every single time, then everyone's going to buy that. So that's going to come down to the marketing side of things. And
whether you've got the money.
Yeah, so it's going to become a capitalist issue, isn't it?
So you think that it's best regulated against? People shouldn't have the option of having this car?
Yeah, I think if people are if we're going to give many of the decision-making processes to society to collectively come up with different ethics of what should happen in various situations, then it shouldn't be allowed by the car makers to go with what's going to sell more.
That said, if it was on the market, would you buy it?
$39.90.
Not bad.
Is there a better model?
Are you in?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
I would. That's the challenge with it.
Annabelle raises an interesting question. Where does liability lie in these situations?
If you think about it, you can't blame the people who programmed it, because the people who programmed it are carrying out all the various instructions that they've been given. So it would come down to who is running the company, where have they gotten their information from. It's numbers that drive forward autonomous vehicles being a thing. It's the numbers, it's the reduction in the death toll. But the problem is, as soon as we start to break it down like we are doing now, that's where the humanity comes in. The humanity comes in when we're thinking about the individuals within it. So the whole argument for us having autonomous vehicles in the first place is that it can drastically reduce the death toll, because think about it, it won't be that long before all of these things start getting rolled out, which is why we're talking about it. It won't be that long before we're all looking back and telling the young generations coming through, we used to drive our own vehicles. We weren't very good at it, but we did it anyway.
That's you, Charlie.
It's actually similar, like, I remember, well, I don't remember, but my dad tells me about when seatbelts came in. And people were furious about being told to put a seatbelt in the car, and the road toll came down in the tens of thousands. And we will look back in a similar way. We brought computers in. We weren't happy with every outcome, but it reduced the road toll by thousands of people every year. However, once we've all agreed on the right ethical algorithm and we legislate it and we're happy with the decisions the cars are going to make, Jordan, how quickly before someone hacks it and puts in their own settings?
There's the other massive issue, isn't it, that cybersecurity is going to have to go on the rise. The other challenge of it is, where do you get the parts from? So how do you know that you can trust the manufacturers in the first place? So you've got that, then you've got the idea of the cybersecurity. How do you make it so that it can't be hacked?
God, that would be an incredible terrorist event, wouldn't it, if all the cars just started going crazy? I'm going to live in a tent.
Well, not everyone is so nostalgic about cars. A lot of famous Aussies are seeing the upside of the driverless revolution. Will Anderson tweeted, "I'm all for driverless if it means there'll be no more Fast and Furious sequels." Carl Stefanovic says, "I love my new driverless. It's like an Uber without my drunken conversations appearing in the newspaper the next day." And Carrie Bickmore has tweeted, "I love driverless cars. Now I never have to teach my kids to drive. Can we get them to do potty training as well?" So, Annabelle, your kids will never learn to drive. Are you devastated or delighted?
I'm completely thrilled. Actually, I'm thrilled that I don't have to teach them how to drive, because really it never works out when parents teach children how to drive. I mean, it's your most likely point of having a full family breakdown. Also, I'm looking forward to, unlike my own parents, getting a good night's relaxing sleep when my teenage children go out in a vehicle, because they won't be driving it and I won't be lying awake having horrific visions of them riding themselves up in a car. So I'm loving it.
So, Merrick, you don't want to have to teach your kids to drive?
No, I want to teach them to drive, but the safety of my children and my family is paramount. So, you know, having to not worry about them being in a vehicle and risking injury to themselves or to others, then, yeah, I do see the benefit of that.
Would you just get the car to do a lot of the drop-off?
Yeah, and then I'd get the car to take them to a car park somewhere and do a few donuts, just so that they just so they know what I'm talking about. So we've got reference points and we have an understanding.
I think one of the things I like about driverless vehicles is the idea of inclusion in society going up. What we have is people with disabilities and the elderly. Well, you'll never have your licence taken off you and you'll be able to find your own way around independently.
I think learning to drive does actually teach you a bit about responsibility, a bit about looking after other people, a little bit about being alert and being aware of the circumstances and the situation and the territory around you.
Yep.
It's actually quite an amazing thing to learn how to do.
It's a milestone in your life. I think everybody remembers when they first learnt how to drive, and it's your first little step towards independence as well.
Well, let's see what happens next. Australia is moving towards a road toll of 0 by introducing driverless cars and banning human driving altogether. But what happens to the people who drive for a living?
The largest mass layoffs in Australian history. More than 20,000 people have lost their jobs today.
Driverless trucks have been operating in Australian mines for years. But today, they moved into the $40 billion freight industry, threatening the livelihoods of 200,000 drivers.
The move by Hall Pass to retrench all drivers has sent shockwaves through one of the nation's largest industries.
The Transport Workers Union has called for immediate strike action, but admits it's fighting a losing battle.
Driverless trucks are far cheaper to operate and can be moving 24 hours a day. This will cut delivery time by a third.
Mark is a typical Australian truck driver. He's 47, married with 2 kids and has no tertiary qualifications. He's lost his job and the bills keep piling up.
It's going to take years to retrain me. I've got a mortgage, family, I really don't know what I'm supposed to do.
Truck driving is actually the most common job for men in Australia, yet at the same time it causes 20% of fatalities on our roads. So, Kate, in the name of safety, does Mark just have to lose his job?
I think Mark just has to lose his job. I think that it's just evolution. We are moving forward with technology and it's saving many people's lives. So he has to go out there and head down to his local whatever job centre and retrain into something, because it will happen eventually, and if it's not to Mark, it'll be to Steve or Jono or Robbo.
Yeah, but there's 200,000 Marks. Like, we're not just talking a Mark here and there. There's 200,000 people who make a living.
3% of the male workforce in Australia.
Right. So that's a lot of guys with similar situation to be converging at once, because this change is happening super fast on the employment agencies of Australia.
20,000 people lost their job in a day.
Yeah.
How many people do they kill again?
Well, it's 20% of fatalities. If it's 1,200 fatalities a year, that's 240 people a year.
Yeah, OK.
And I have no idea if that was correct.
It seemed really convincing, though.
Yeah.
A lot of truckies die too, right? So, as part of that figure, I don't know. It's a really big group of people to lose their sense of identity, self and employment all at once. And there are knock-on effects from that too, because if you look at economic changes in the past, you know, these points at which whole workforces get put out of work, it creates a whole class of completely dispossessed and angry people.
But industrialisation led to revolution.
Yeah.
Yep. And this is a technological advance unlike anything we've ever seen on the planet before.
Look, there's already enough ways in which we're slowly removing ourselves from our own labour force. You know, we're handing over our jobs and part of our economy to robots, you know, and this would be another step in that. But there's also, too, the unthought of trickle-down effect. Think about all the small country towns. Their local economies rely enormously on those vehicles passing through those towns. They're not going to pass through their towns anymore. They're just going to keep going. The economies of those small towns will be... There's no way, no, they wouldn't be in some way affected in a negative sense. But there's all the kind of little cottage industries around it as well.
Also, the end of CB radio. 10-4, Robert.
10-4?
Yeah.
10-4. So...
and won't we grieve? So, Jordan, you work in the field of getting computers to take over from us and to do things. Do you think we're ready to hand over control?
I think what I look at is how can computing, hacking technology augment our experience and augment us, in a lot of cases improving quality of life. And that's where we sort of look at the levels of technology coming our way: automation, autonomous vehicles, artificial intelligence, robotics. How can these things be harnessed for some form of good? And I guess this is the whole dilemma that we've been looking at, which is, you know, autonomous vehicles will improve the safety of our roads. It'll reduce our death toll. On the individual level, it will deeply impact different family members, different people's jobs, and I think we have to figure out how, as a society, we're going to adapt to that change that's coming our way. I'm of the mindset that we embrace technological advancement, but learn to understand it and open these conversations. I think they're very important to have.
Because I don't think we can stop it. I don't think we have a choice. I think it's just going to happen. And it is about understanding it and having these conversations and sucking it up.
Annabelle, how about you?
Started out at the beginning here just horrified at the whole idea, but particularly a bunch of stuff that you've said has actually made me feel more enthusiastic. I think that the idea of getting people engaged and bringing people out to participate in society who can't drive at present is a really good thing, and so is the safety benefit. But God, it just means we've got to be so careful about the decisions we make, about how these cars make decisions. I mean, this is going to have to be a seriously elegant decision-making process, which is what makes me so pleased that we've got the parliament that we have right now, because I think we're up to the job.
Ever since Henry Ford made cars available to the masses, they have come to symbolise freedom. And while that freedom has always come at a cost, are we sure we know what the cost will be if we give it up? One thing is for certain, Thelma and Louise would have been far less inspiring if their car had refused to go off the cliff and just automatically driven them to the police station. Let's see how it all turned out.
As traditional cars become worthless, Clean Up Australia is begging people to stop dumping them wherever they please.
This is ridiculous. It's like those bloody share bikes all over again.
Parents have got their weekends back, as many now send their kids unaccompanied to Saturday sport.
You have reached your destination. Go get him, Tiger.
This year's Bathurst 1000 will be the first race to pit humans against driverless cars.
Oh, go Holden, go Ford! Go Google!
Comedian Merrick Watts has become the first person to circumnavigate Australia in a driverless car. He said the journey was incredibly boring, although he did get a lot of sleep. He raised almost no money for charity.
Would you please thank our guests, Dr. John Newen, Kate Peck, Merrick Watts, and of course, Annabelle Crabb. Join us next week for the news as it breaks before it's even broken. Good night.